for a casino that was for 12 under in Indiana.
I just
Like, okay. Maybe we have a reputation outside of Indiana for being degenerate gamblers.
well, I tell my clients, I'm not sure if it's true because it was sort of even it's sort of it's just a wives' tale or whatever in Boston, but there's a form of ownership of property in Indiana called tenants by the attorneys. There will be no test, which is a unique form of ownership between spouses. And in which you only not only have rights of survivorship, but you don't own an undivided half. You technically each own the whole thing. And we asked why that even existed. And the story that has been passed down was that men in Indiana would go down riverboats on the Ohio and use the house. And the legislature at one point put something in where they couldn't do that by themselves anymore, and that the widow and the kid, the kids could not be thrown out just because husband was a degenerate gambler. I don't know if it's true or not. It would effectively stop it.
Yeah.
Well, we're only going to take that as a bet if you got the missus here to sign off too.
Yeah, you better hope that the other party does that, because if he goes and wins and then thinks he's got a new house, it's like, well, wait, he couldn't have legally given me that house. That stinks.
No. Good story. Gambling in Indiana, it's back. It is back and bigger than ever.
David.
None. And maybe it's just because it's one of the few vices I don't have, but I just never been enamored with the whole gambling thing. I wasn't that thrilled when they put the lottery in or any of that stuff.
I've gone to casinos a couple of times, but like I go in with a $20 cap and have a nice afternoon. It's been like 3 times.
I just think lotteries and that kind of stuff are really regressive tax
Yeah,
structures. That's my problem with this thing. People that can least afford are the ones that give me 3 more tickets. I'll take both.
On that note,
On that, sorry about that.
I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. February 12th. It is 6 p.m. We have Spencer here as the acting president of the department. Is out today. Can someone motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Greg moves to approve the minutes as presented.
Seconded with, is that for both minutes?
Oh,
Yeah,
for
we'll
both the regular minutes and the finance.
Seconded by Chris.
We have a motion to all the board minutes from last week, the finance committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes. New business. Mike, do you want to read this?
I'll introduce you to Mike.
Come up here.
Mike, come on up and join us.
Mike,
And thank you for being here with the weather the way it is. I assume that you're not as local as many of us. Oh, that's not too bad.
So Mike is from Premier Engineering. They've worked with the library a few times on different projects and stuff. So I reached out to him to look into the potential of solar here in Peabody, and so talk about what he found.
Everybody here is so good.
Okay, so we were engaged to basically evaluate if it's feasible to put solar panels on the roof. Building, that was the first step. And pending the outcome of that finding, we would then progress into what would an appropriate size be, and progress into detailed design. And so it was more of a progressive approach. So the first step we did is we engaged a structural engineering firm to evaluate the roof structure, and attached to the packet you have for project is a recommendation letter from a structural engineer, basically telling us, advising us that this roof structure is not compatible with putting additional weight on top of it. And without getting too far into the details, it's essentially based on the steel that was used in the original roof construction, what we refer to pre-engineered metal truss system, typically designed to very thin margins with not a lot of extra, weight considered for future needs. That's essentially what the light did recommendation.
God bless you.
So based on his recommendations, I'm going to recommend it, not pursue it. So basically say you're at the barest minimum of snow load capacity. Yeah. So based on that, Mike and I had a conversation. Are there additional options for you to pursue solar? I shared some images just as discussion points to open a conversation. If this is something you still would like to pursue, there are other options. I'm sure everyone has seen the ground mount arrays. I think it's the very last picture on the very back. It's a very simple type of structure that you can use on fence posts or different types of racking systems. Those options exist. They are probably the most economical approach. Consume some ground space, and practical standpoint is probably not desirable thing to have in public. It's probably the least costly approach to put a ground mount array. I can tell you from experience, I have a ground mount array in my office, very similar to this, and it sits behind our building. Nobody really sees it from the front door, but we still get a lot of people that are curious and go, "Oh, that's great! I'd love to see this," and they want to learn about it because it's sitting on the ground and they can easily walk up and touch it and see it, feel it. So it usually invokes curiosity from people who see it, but it's not really an architectural masterpiece. So we worked on projects with other clients as we turned back to some of the other images. Try not to bounce around too much. Very first image is just a property map, just to kind of be a wayfinding tool when you start talking about placement and options. But the image below it is an example of an array that could be used over a parking area. Structurally, it's a very simple structure. You can see there's not a lot to the structure. Fairly cost-effective, dollars spent, and you essentially use the panels as the roof structure, which provides some side benefits of nights like tonight. Park under it, not have snow and ice on your car. Sunny hot days, you can park under it, not have a blazing hot car when you go out. So there's some side benefits, and we often see this used for preferential parking, staff parking. I think Mike made a comment that, wheelchair accessible parking, this becomes a nice covered area to use something. It's an option. And as you turn the page, you'll see kind of a variation of that system. It's more of a two-sided cantilever. If you've been through the airport of Fort Wayne International, this is where their rental car center. This is very similar to what they're using there. And again, it's a fairly simplistic structure and use the panels as the roofs. So for parking options, this is typically what you find the options are available. They don't look horrendous and are fairly cost effective. If you start to look at the other options, it's more what I call landscape structures and patio structures, pergola structures, and more of an intentional social space type of structure. When you start to get into this, you start to have a conversation of how much money do you want to put into the structure for yourselves. Is this intended to be a public space, staff, break space possibly? I don't know if there's a smoking area designated on the property that's not part of that staff break area. There's multiple options, lots of different types of structures. They include just timber frame to all different types of materials.
Thank you. How, like for energy usage, is each one of the rectangular pieces an array, or is a group of them an array? How do you?
So each panel is an individual panel, typically producing anywhere from 300 to 500 watts per panel. typically you're going to string several of them together to a string. You refer to it as, and each string then composes an array of strings. So a lot of it depends on panels, capacity, dollar value, spend on the system, and if you're
How large or small would it need to be to start with like an educational thing for the public and offsetting for the library cost? Or
we've seen schools and facilities put in something as simple as half a dozen panels, which could be something the size of one of those window screens. If it's small as that, if you're looking for just community active, the discussion. It's simple. They make racks and literally it's just a single pole on the ground and has arms and can pull half a dozen panels fairly easy.
the data that we would get from something like that, is that scalable then to get?
And there's obviously some benefits of scale from a wiring and power standpoint because you have to run conduit and the AC side of the power out to the inverter. And once you sink that cost of trenching and conduit and just the labor of doing it, whether it's 6 panels, 60 panels,
Is there I assume that there is a requirement for the orientation. The panels, I assume they need to roughly face south.
Ideally, they're going to face south. Ideally, in our latitude, we're going to have an inclination of about 23 degrees, ideally, but there are different types of panels that have prismatic surfaces that account for it. If you have suboptimal placements, like if you have a roof that is at a really steep pitch or a really low pitch, you really don't have a lot of flexibility. You can use a prismatic panel to enhance its ability to capture the solar rays and give you optimal performance, but you're going to pay more for these panels. And it's just, you're paying a premium for having that suboptimal angle installation. If you're doing a ground mount, generally you get to choose the angle. If it's a simple, array like this, they're really not paying attention to, the elevation and the pitch. But when you start to talk about structures over walkways or structure over parking areas, you typically see them a little more flat. And that's when you're going to look for these prismatic style panels to give you better efficiency, because in the wintertime, your sun is farther down in the horizon, or in the summertime, it's farther up. You can optimize your panel selection with what are your goals you're trying to achieve. Net zero versus just shave the peaks off. We try to optimize the efficiency of the panel versus the cost of the panel versus the location. There's multiple variables. Right? I'll first say I'm not the expert of experts to solar panels. We're basically providing the electrical engineering piece, partnering in with a trusted partner to help run those economic simulations if we get to that part.
What kind of maintenance is required?
I can tell you from our use, zero. I don't clean them. I don't brush snow off them. I don't wash them. I don't do anything. We have had, in our instance, we have what's called a microinverter on the back of each panel. We've had 2 of those fail in 8 years. When that happens, that one panel goes off. Microinverter is change that whole string configuration we talked about. Bring 10 of them together. If any one panel becomes defective, becomes covered by shade, has debris on it, or whatever, it will take the entire string down. It's basically the weakest link. The string operates at that lowest level. So if one panel is really underperforming or fails, the other 9 suffer for it. Microinverter, each panel is essentially treated as its own string independently.
Like Christmas lights.
Yeah, every other panel is So if one panel goes down, none of the other ones really know about it or care. So that was a choice we made. The microinverter, it added some cost to our system. I would tell you, most commercial guys are going to tell you, don't spend the money on them because they are prone to failure. And they're finding that the cost benefit ratio, it's not really warranted nowadays, but 10 years ago when we were looking at it, nowadays they just put them on strings, and if you have one go down, you just work on that panel.
The picture you have on the back.
Yes.
Scaling of that, I think it looks like about 85 or so panels on there. What's the actual size?
Typically, the unit module for a panel is about 5 feet
Okay.
by a little under 3 feet. They're based on a metric size.
Good.
So they're not as big as a sheet of plywood, but they're about as tall as I am, just a little over 5 feet by 2.5. So if you look at that scale, that's probably, I'm gonna say,
Yeah,
100 feet or more.
yeah. Question, Greg. Since we can't put it on the roof, is that more or less of an issue, do you think?
Liability?
No, like, since we're on a wetland and things, and I don't want to say community pushback or anything like that, but just like the wonder that I had is, would that appear more of us wanting to protect the wetland by trying to do some alternative energy sources for the library?
Well, and my interest on this as a board member has always been the educational.
Yes.
And while it would be a bonus to save money on the electricity, it's been, you said people come up and they ask and they talk about it. I think that we could use stuff like that. That's what I think the library should do, is so people will say, oh, I wonder how that works, or I wonder what that looks like. So I think it's less of an issue because I think it's going to provide us with an opportunity to have it be its own feature. I realize it's not real scenic.
No, well, I would just, like, because.
But we've got the arboretum, and I wouldn't want to disturb that. But I'm wondering if we've got enough land there near the corner of Van Buren and Tower View, and I know that's at an angle. That's part of the reason I was asking about the orientation. And there is some wooded areas and brush in there, but we own all of that, right? So I'm thinking we actually have property now, and that would be far enough away that I don't think it would bother the aesthetics of the library itself, and yet it's kind of right off the path. But I'm not that disturbed by the fact that you can't put it on the roof. On the roof. Yeah. And I guess so. You have yours in place. I do, however, deal with young people when they're sometimes not at their best. It's a lot of us.
That was more my question.
So
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I do deal sometimes with young people when they're not at their best.
Ah, yes.
So
Read vandalism.
you know exactly where I was going to go. So I know you'd said, these aren't bothered by things, but especially if we would put this out closer to the street or in a less obvious place, spray paint. I mean, what kind of damage how hardy are these things?
Well, they come in different flavors, different manufacturers with different coatings, but generally all of them have a glass on those manufacturers just because it's designed to withstand all the hails. You know, basic things hitting it. I think you could probably say somebody could pound on it with a fist and not do any damage. Pounding on it with a hammer probably would do damage. You've got exposed wiring, and somebody had a pair of wire cutters, they could do vandalism in that manner. I mean, it's entirely possible. A lot of it depends on how high off the ground. If you raise it higher off the ground, it becomes more difficult to have sensation what can they do. And a lot of it depends on the type of bracket system. Low ground mount, obviously, is more accessible. some of these racks, get them up 10 feet off the ground where you'd have to really work. It's entirely what you want to do.
Well, and the problem is I want it lower because I would like people to be able to see it and interact with it. But
Yes,
that's,
but I think the value of being able to see actually comes from showing software.
we gotta keep going.
Showing the real-time monitoring, showing how much energy we're saving, showing that kind of, like, people have seen solar panels,
You're right.
so.
I've never seen them up close like that. I would be curious to use them like either camping or any of those outdoor type activities by the shed and wanted to, something a little way
You're not
more
wrong,
around the house.
but I think what you'd actually be interested in is how much juice it's making,
Correct.
and that's just.
The data.
Then the other option.
So I think if, to your educational component, I think part of what we'd have to consider is the display of what's happening. Like, what is, are we saving money for the public? There's gonna be a lot of people that care about that. Are we doing good for the environment? There's gonna be a subset. And I think like a thing upstairs when you walk in, to get a monitor that would be valuable in the system. Because you will see that. There's not like, I don't know, what kind of inverters do you guys usually go with?
Ours at our office are Solar Edge. There's
Okay,
multiple
that's the one I'm
vendors, but
familiar with.
most of the vendors out there allow you, if you're willing to run an Ethernet cable, some of them can do it wirelessly. You can have a little display portal where it shows you energy use, energy consumption, and total dollars saved if you plug in your energy rate.
Yeah. I'm familiar with those inverters. We have solar. And it was pretty cool. You could see exactly what's going on at any given point. If it's shaded out, you can see that it's shady. If one of your panels is covered, you could see that it was covered. So I think that would, to the education.
And that, yeah.
Also, I think with our gardening programs, we could probably consider how does agrivoltaics fit into this type of thing. That's probably something I'm interested in.
Can you expound on that? Because I have no clue what you're talking about.
Agrivoltaics. So the idea of agrivoltaics is that you can still have viable food growing in and around. So like one of the really common pushbacks of putting solar panels in farmland is that it's no longer farmland. That's not true to the extent of you can still definitely grow things there. It's just that it's not corn, soybeans, or the certain crops that we typically see. So a really common one is berries. You can grow berries under them very fine because they don't want to be hit by the sun. They won't eat. So things like that, I think, might be. If we think about it in the context of our gardening programs, that seem to be pretty popular. Like, can we fit those together?
Have we talked about the cost of this educational experiment? Because was that way before me?
No.
No,
That's
this is
a big
all-
part. That's a big part of what. this
Oh,
is.
okay.
This is all we're just trying to
Okay,
figure out.
I'm like,
No, we were trying to
well, y'all
figure
seem to
out.
understand what's going on. and
No,
I'm like,
other than we were like wanting to look into it for
Got it.
purposes of whether there would be a savings and for education purposes.
Yeah. And if our roof could hold it.
We know the roof can't. hold it.
Now we know the roof can't hold it.
We know the
One
one
problem.
Yep.
On that note, do you have any ballpark figures on what like a dollar per square foot looks like on this type of thing?
Generally, it's dollars per watt. Generally, around $3 per watt. So
On the ground mount.
whether you're racking on a roof or racking on a simple ground mount structure, the more elaborate you get your rack. And that's just kind of an average price, including the inverters, including the AC side back into the building, switch gear. And obviously distance from the building starts to play in, because you gotta run the wire on truck. Generally, we recommend that put your inverter as close to the array as you possibly can, because you lose more on the DC side than you do on the AC side. You carry AC a really long distance.
Tesla was right.
Yes.
That's right.
Edison was wrong.
Yes, he was.
Who got that?
Is there
That's-
like an ROI for this, like how?
Typically, you're gonna find a ROI between 7 and 8 years. Commercial. Obviously, the scale, some of that can fluctuate. So,
Yeah.
you can get the racking,
Right.
it's costly, you drive
And you said yours, you had yours for
8 years.
8 years?
We get payback around 7.
So,
And we benefited from federal tax credit that now is available to nonprofits. And at the time, nonprofits could really capitalize on that. Now, with credits that are still currently in place, but I will be honest with you, they may not be in place for very longer. They'll cut a check directly to you from U.S. Treasury. It's not a taxable entity, taxable. Without that credit, you're gonna extend that payback to about 10.
You never know.
And you're gonna have to help me because Swift at
Because you know,
calculating these things. So I think I've got an idea of approximately how big this is. So what would have been the price tag on, or what would be the price tag on something that size on the ground roughly? And I'm mainly trying to figure out how many digits we're talking about. Okay, so Chris is doing that because he's.
I was gonna get my
understanding.
calculator out,
That's
if I can
16
swipe it,
across.
yep.
5 wide.
Chris, it looked like you were about.
I'm just trying to figure, are we talking about
Yeah.
$500,000,000? Are we talking about?
So that'd be
50,000?
80 panels.
So each panel's around, let's just say 450.
Yeah, because you said 300 to 500 watts.
Yeah.
Times $3 a watt.
Yeah, I
Where's your
know.
mental math going?
I'm not doing it in my head. I get something.
Yeah, so you got 108,000 before any credits, and you guys qualify right now for about a 35% credit right off the top. If you are able to employ an electrician that has journeyman electricians that are in the apprenticeship program, you get another 10%. The other percentages are if you're in a brownfield, which I'm qualified, if you're in a rest. So 45% credit is the most. So take that. So ballpark spitball number is $60,000 for that particular layer.
Assuming all those.
As of today.
Assuming,
Yeah.
those credits.
As of today. Okay, because I'm not sure we would want anything nearly that big.
Correct, yeah. You were thinking on the high end, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, yes, okay. So without the credits, 108, something like that. Okay.
Depending on how
That's
you
a
mount
pretty
it.
large array.
Yeah, no, that's, I'm looking at that, I was like, I'm thinking we're looking at something maybe a third that size. Do that.
So how much you would want these structures be over,
That,
like the second picture over a parking area?
yeah, that's where
Yeah,
it gets into a lot of variables.
sure. Because of the structure.
How
The
elaborate
mountain.
you're looking for. And that's where I guess if you guys say, yeah, we definitely are interested in pursuing, because we stopped after step 1.
Sure, absolutely.
Step 2 is okay, let's talk about sizing and budget of the array. Step 3 is what kind of racking and support system you want. And we can certainly start down those conversations and do that.
Absolutely.
But I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't have numbers for all these different options.
You didn't come here tonight for that, so you're doing great.
If you've got an idea what angle, I should start exploring those options.
I'm personally interested in the parking lot. I'm curious what you guys think, but we have a pretty big chunk of asphalt, and parking your car outside all day long gets pretty hot. So there's, side benefits as a consumer or as a. It depends on obviously how much more it is. And then also obviously we need to add tags, but be at least curious how much more we add to it. I don't know what it is.
What is our threshold for leaving out bids? Like, is there,
This would be,
this would be on the, yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I was thinking about a smaller,
and the other thing that I'm wondering is, I suppose I could volunteer, is, given our electric bills, I think we could get the return saving some money. And again, that would depend on the size of the use. I think there'd be some savings, but I'm wondering about approaching a partner like Community Foundation. Seeing if we could get even some matching funds or something for them. They're right across the street. I think this is something that they might support. I'm having a hard time, especially if we're going to get into a structure where we're talking about $150,000. The time that it's going to take us to get that back, I think that's hard to justify.
Yeah, and after we've already, all of our pieces are now gone that we had
Yes,
for those. No, this wasn't in that.
and this was, yeah.
What is our access threshold?
Is it, I want to say that it's 20,000. I mean, it's not real high, is it?
I was thinking 50.
It may be 50. It changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sticks my mind.
So we might, if everything went right, it was the right weather, we got the right, whether the sun was shining the right direction, the right credits were there, and all of those things, we might be okay. Especially if we had a structure into that. The number 100,000 is going to stick in my head.
Yeah, and
I know that you didn't mean to do that, but this is, I was trying to figure out, is this a $5,000 thing? Is this a $500,000 thing? But it to me sounds like we're looking more at $100,000. And yeah, I don't know. I'd just like to do some more thinking on it. I think at this juncture, I don't know how everybody else feels. Anybody object if I want to approach the Community Foundation and see if they would be interested in partnering? Okay.
As long as they know it's not a commitment.
Yeah. Well, no. That's the thing is.
Yes, I agree, but I thought, I don't know.
No. I mean, I'm not.
Right.
Because I could tell them that our willingness to do this would vary on several things, including but not limited, maybe some partnership with it.
Sure, because from an educational standpoint, I have a hard time justifying 10 years getting back to 100,000. And that.
Oh, you mean from the money savings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, from spending taxpayers' money,
Yeah.
10-year coming back. I get it that it is, you would get money back, but that.
Well, that's why I'm thinking the educational element is the part that's kind of always been, I didn't see more and more, but,
Right.
and well, then I go ahead and make a note to myself to reach out. We can show that, I guess, unless somebody wants to take some other action on it.
I think that's great.
Us.
Keep researching.
I guess we've got an agreement through Michael for us to provide services to help you through the process. Right now, we've paused after phase one.
Yeah.
We're not going here. If you say, this just isn't right for us, I think our services are done.
Okay.
If you say, yeah, we want to pursue something, then the next step is we need to start talking to the local utility about rate structure, start working with the solar teams on sizing to see from a dollar standpoint, what's a cost, what's a payback, can you utilize everything that you're producing, because we'll look at your utility consumption through the entire year, or to try to figure out what you use it during daylight hours specifically. It's, you've got a lot of natural daylighting. You're not turning off lights because of natural daylighting. We're going to try to make sure we're consuming that production with your chiller plant and air handlers, make sure we're not sizing a system that you can't consume what's coming off. Step 2, then put together a proposal package of if you haven't already this size, it's going to cost you about this much. Do you want us to prepare bid documents once we've got that information? That's kind of the next trigger point. Proceed or don't proceed. We're here purely as engineering consultants to help put together a set of biddable documents that can give you whatever it is that achieve.
Yeah, my concern, like we were looking at, especially with our overhead picture that is on here, thank you, very helpful for that, is like where we could put it without having to cut trees down. That was what I was concerned.
Well, and I also looked out along there, but I don't know if we're in the right of way because they did use that.
You're gonna have setback requirements because of where on roadway surfaces they don't want anything.
Right.
Yeah. Out this side, there's a hill that might be like between the building and the street, so even farther from the, just off the, might be perfect, if it's not used, we don't use it for anything, it'd still be accessible. It's, that might be it.
That's where the sizing, software that they utilize, it literally will take Google Earth, 3D Google, that you can find on Google Maps, and it shows all the houses under the trees. Nice thing is it'll be able to calculate, determine the shadow cast on the tree, on the structure, so they'll know this is not a good spot. This is a good spot.
Joel, what are you thinking?
Taking it on in.
Well, it would be one of the only things that we would have done for the library that has any potential of putting money back in once it's paid off.
That's true.
Everything else is just an expense.
Our electrical bills are not trending the right way.
No, they keep going up every year. That's true.
What's the typical longevity of each panel?
Manufacturers are going to tell you 20 to 25 years, they will still have 80% of their effective capacity. So if you break the chassis, just break. They're
Sure.
telling you 20 to 25 years, you'll still have 80%. So as long as you understand, once you start getting past that period, you'll see the efficiency and capacity of that panel slowly just start to deteriorate.
Like your roofing system?
Catalytic converters, yeah.
That is still longer than I anticipated.
Yeah, and at that point, the panel needs replaced and the inverters need replaced, but theoretically, the wiring and the trenching is still.
Or maybe need updated, the wiring may be updated for the newer panels that
Maybe,
will be invented in the future.
because
Yeah,
they're so efficient and so incredible. Or we just have like nuclear generators in the backyard.
just saying. But that'll be minimal cost if you have to upgrade them.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. I was going to say, I'd like to keep that on the agenda. I will try to report back at the next meeting and reach out to the community foundation. And at least I have some ballpark figures to say we're probably looking at $100,000. We have a hard time justifying that expense out of tax monies, even though we think there will be some payback. See if and they may say that there's no value in it. Then you know that.
Right.
Would be the first thing.
What's that?
We wouldn't be the first library they've donated to, though.
This is true.
Not to bring that into it.
This is.
Do we have any more questions for Mike? Because, you know, it is icing outside.
Yeah, sorry. I'm good with Mike. This is super valuable to me.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Anything else, we'll send to Mike?
Yeah, and we'll keep the dialogue open and
Okay.
and I'm here at your service. If you say go, we'll go. If you say pause, we'll pause. If you say stop, we'll stop.
Chris, do you know if the school system would have, I mean, do they have anything like that at the school system? Is that something that they would find helpful or educational?
100%. I mean,
Okay.
with all the CTE monies that is not coming from the state,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Okay.
However, that would be a partnership we'd have to talk to with.
Well, the school is not who I would look to give us money.
No, there
But
would be a
for
lot
the
of,
educational.
there'd be
aspect of
businesses
it.
and things that would definitely, because like you said, technicians and everything else is going that direction.
Well, that's the educational element of it that I was concerned about was the expertise. If this is technology that's going to move,
Yeah,
we
we have
50 years is
students
going to
that
be kind of where we
are
are.
trying to get into the journeyman electrician programs and things in this area. So yeah, 100%.
That's the rationale with Fred.
Yeah, that's
you.
More tradesmen.
Custom to understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Drive safely.
Thank you.
Walk safely on the sidewalk.
Or
Don't
see it.
out like I did.
Oh, I wondered, you got covered with a lot of stuff there that was on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Hans, are you okay?
Do you knock yourself out?
Yet. No. Remember, there's ice under the snow.
Yeah,
Under the
yeah.
snow coming down.
Okay, Mike, back to you for the director's report.
All right, when we talked about the solar panel, project, potential project, the next thing that I have is the annual report, just letting you know that, I am currently working on that and pulling numbers and stuff, for Joel and Angela who are newer. We have to do this every year, it's a requirement, look at our expenditures, our revenue, where we spend our money on, what kind of circulation we had, just all those type of things. And then these numbers go to the state compiles them and sends them to the federal museum institute agency. That's not right term, but for their report back to national wide. We get a lot of really good information about it. We can see how we're trending, how our attendance is doing on our programs. If we had more programs, our attendance increasing, and so it's a good touch point every year. It's due the beginning of March, and I am well into it, so it will be done. Back to this next month. Any questions on that? Had a nice visit with John McFadden, who's the director over at Bones Health across the street. They utilize us a lot. They've placed for their clients to come, to work with us, and so they just want to make sure that we were do that well. They are probably one of our largest users during the day. Skills coaching, family visits and stuff like that. Just one more resource that we provide the community, because they do not have space for those type of visits and skills coaching and stuff like that. So having us nearby and
Do they pay for access?
They're technically a nonprofit, so it's part.
Yeah, so exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
things to watch, just so you guys are aware of. There's a lot of things in this current legislature that potentially could affect and will affect the library and function. A lot of our revenue comes from property taxes. There's talked about the governor's proposed budgets. He is proposing to cut 20 to 30% to the state library. That would affect the subsidies that the state library provides to us for Info Express, the service to move deals across the country, across the state, and even our cost for Evergreen, Indiana, is highly subsidized. Plus, supplier, those databases and stuff that we don't pay for. That stuff would be affected. So just be aware of that. Just be aware.
So we haven't run any projections or anything yet? No, just.
Well, it's all still real speculative.
It is.
I mean, a lot of it, and my guess is AIM, which is the Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, is probably pushing hard back against all of this stuff because this is the towns and the cities.
The schools are.
Yeah.
I might have, I meant to if I didn't. The Indiana Library Federation has joined with me to oppose this, and they listed on all the other, in the email.
Yeah, it was in the email.
It was there, I did, okay, good. I thought about sending it, I'm glad I actually remembered to do it. But yeah, there's lots of municipalities.
So that would take place 2026, yes. Is this a 2027 activation?
I think it's, so one of the proposed bills, Senate Bill 283, that would, in that bill, it would eliminate libraries being a taxing entity. So we would then fall under the county directly and dissolve the board. That was set to take place like July 1 this year. I think that died in committee, but
I still get time.
so.
So if some of these do get passed, then we have to look at the budget, is that,
Yes.
okay?
Yesterday at a meeting at the school, that if these go through, one that is now in committee, if it goes through, the school itself, the county would lose $1.275 million. Well, but when I was on the board, that would have been 1/20th of the budget.
Yeah, so you have to look at
definitely stat levels.
budgets.
Yeah,
It's like 20% of Northwest's budget.
yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. Um,
And I have a love-hate relationship with it because I don't mind paying less tax.
In fact, that's what
And I know those are, but at the same time, it doesn't burden the state as much. The property tax is really for local entities. So I assume township trustees are up in arms and, yeah.
and things to remember when, if these things were to pass, we would still have the state requirement to spend 8%, at least 8% of our revenue on collection. And then you have staffing. So the way to cut costs is to cut hours.
Yeah.
Cut hours and cut staffing. So that's what it.
We all cut services, and that's what we're trying to stay, keep over as much as we can.
Yeah. So, just for you guys to be aware of, and that's where it's out there. Something that's not in here that just happened yesterday, as we talk about money, our water softener, the leaf line, that should never have pressure on it. Valve got stuck open, there's pressure on it long enough that it's going to leak. So that's been taken care of, but while they were out here, they were looking at it and said, yeah, the softener's 26 years old, going on 26 years old. It was, not the best top line at the time, so they were actually surprised it was still there and functioning. So we will most likely have to be replacing that system here soon.
What size of a water softener does the library? I'm just wondering, because it's not like you take showers or do a lot of laundry.
Right, I mean,
So,
it's not a huge softener, but I mean, you have,
so roughly the same size as a large residential?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well but because it's for a library, it's not going to cost the same thing. That's the problem.
I have no idea.
That sounds like a couple $1,000s.
Does it feed water into the chiller system?
I don't think so.
Well, I would think that, yeah,
I wouldn't want that.
yeah,
Wouldn't
that would
that
be farm
kind
water.
Yeah.
You're right.
So,
I mean, that's
Cut down the
theoretically
shelf life. You're right.
Yeah, it's a closed loop chiller, so it's not going to use a ton of water, but it's still.
So you just find somebody to take care of that, is that what you do?
Colligans
Okay, great.
is who we have. They come out, they
Perfect,
we have a contract with them to fill the salt and all that stuff already. They're the ones that came out and fixed it. And he'll be out Friday morning.
And they can give us an estimate,
Yeah,
maybe if it
right.
needs to go better.
Are we, how soon does it need, it still works, yes?
It still works, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
then we don't need to make a motion.
No,
Yeah,
no,
no,
it's not, hasn't died or anything like that. It's just the valve was stuck open. But yeah, and which also means that I have no idea what our water bill will be next month, because I have no idea how long that was leaking, because it's in the back of the mechanical room where we don't go check.
And that's going to tip the sewer bill.
that's bigger.
That's going to be the bigger one, because that's usually.
Sure.
Yeah, well, so,
I built an ice rink in my backyard. It cost $120 in water. So depending on how those two relate, you can expect $100 at least.
okay, so, that is that's all I had. Is there anything that in the packet or reports that you guys saw that you have questions about or want to highlight?
Sort of know generally, that your department heads are clearly putting a lot of work into the reports, and they do. They make, you know, I hate to say I like pictures and graphics, but they look very nice and they are easy to read and very informative.
Very informative.
Yeah, I was appreciative of the experiment with Overdrive. I'm curious how that goes, medium and long term, but
Yeah.
it went okay for the first.
Yeah, it went, Katie gave me numbers and I should have written those down, but she was able to knock off a huge chunk of the whole.
Yes, it says, cut down 32 hold times.
Yeah, so,
It's good.
You remember what year we went to the LED lights?
Well, it wasn't, I mean, we had a big bite, but we did that incrementally.
We did it incrementally,
was
yeah.
it during COVID? You started that? I mean, I think that seems to be when a lot of building projects.
I want to say it's been within the last 5 years.
Well, I remember we did it and we saw a substantial drop in our electric bill. And then within 6 months, our rate almost,
They changed the rate, and it was a
Yeah.
good thing that we did it because the rate would have been even much worse, but it was a nice savings there for them.
Yeah.
You may be right. That may have been here or about COVID. I would have to go.
I don't remember. I was just looking at the numbers as we were talking about other things. For our electric bill every month.
Just keep going.
It just keep going.
So does somebody just check out the bike lock in order to use it for a while and bring it back, or? Okay.
And it can be checked out with our bikes as well. So they can do
That
it.
makes sense. Great.
I really like our library of things. Got it.
Okay, on that note, if we move on to claims, does everybody have a chance to review any questions you might? I noticed that we had some January and February billings.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So the number looked big and I don't have any questions.
I will.
I do.
Go ahead.
Whoa.
Okay, on page 21. 3.42, other insurance, I just didn't know what that was.
That's our, I mean, we have cyber insurance coverage,
Okay.
we have. liability.
Got it, okay, that made sense to me. And then 3.61, the building structure repair. Just seemed like a large amount. It wasn't the water softener, obviously.
No.
Good catch.
Well, I'm so new, I don't know what all.
No. That's. I'm curious now too.
The other mics. That was really.
Yeah, so that'll be one of, so the fee for the, structural engineer will be part of that.
Okay.
He's on the back, isn't he? He's on page 29. Is that the primary engineering operating? that-
Yeah.
$2,250, okay. So that's included in this 34, so.
Yeah. So so page 20, over to 21.
Yeah,
One.
yeah,
Yeah, 23, 21, those, that number's the total, and then the following breaks down individual checks that were written. So these totals on the checks will total what's on the page 21. Does that make sense?
yeah, which page?
That one is.
Page 21 is $34,000. I don't think we have anything that adds up to $30,000 in building construction. And this is the only claim we have.
Yeah, that's, I just didn't see what
Primary is just
added
two
up.
cents carried over from December.
It's a good question. I don't know if we had any carryovers, Mike, that we
No,
put against the 2025 budget.
Some we brought that were done in December that were brought for payment in January.
it's all been in here. One of those checks, I think. That was,
We also have $7,900 from CPW. I don't know if we put the computer hardware towards building expenses.
No, that's not,
I wouldn't think so. But
no, that's a,
that's the only other big thing I see.
yeah, that, the CW is coming out of 4.12.
How was this? I don't actually know how the encumbered report is generated. Is it annual process?
no, the only big checks that were from last month were to electric utilities.
Which that's what, that's on 3.52, right?
Mike, do you mind
That's-
following up on that and breaking
Yep,
that
that's
one
it,
down
yeah.
for us?
Yeah, I will do that.
And get that
Yeah,
in an email? No, that's, I think that's a good catch, because I'm seeing the primary engineering there, but that's not accounting for it. And Chris, you're looking over last.
No, there's no, there were no large checks, just some smaller ones, but nothing that was,
We can still approve the claims independent of this particular issue.
Yes, so on page 28 then, the Parkview occupational, I don't know what EAP 2025 is.
It's, our employee assistance program,
Okay.
so, that's our annual.
Thank you.
Do we have any indication on the level of usage we're getting out of that? That was one of the things that we
They,
established in the first time. Check in.
They send out reports regularly, and I have not gotten one. I'll reach out. I believe.
It seemed like at least shortly after we started it.
Yeah.
And thank you for adding all of the explanations on the side. I'm sure you've been doing that because of me, but it's very helpful. Because then at least I have a better clue. Yeah. Thanks for getting back with us on that. So Angela makes a motion that we accept this as stated, is that
We
correct?
pay the claims.
That we pay the claims.
This was-
And, you know,
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
March seconds.
Okay, all in favor of claims as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
So we pay that though, and then we figure out what.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Because
you will have,
That's already
tomorrow,
been,
tomorrow morning you will have.
Oh, thanks.
Mike wants to know.
Mike
Yeah.
hates it when he can't answer
I
our
was
question.
gonna say by
Yeah,
March,
that's-
so, okay.
You like clockwork is within the next day or two, shoot me.
Okay.
I mean, theoretically, the
I-
claims is what we paid out and we have approved. We haven't seen anything go out that should price us out of that. Unless something wasn't in the claims register. It's either paperwork error, something from last year or something.
there were no checks that I saw, but
Yeah.
Find it.
Okay,
So I make motion to end, is that, do we need that?
I will second that motion to adjourn.
all right. Meeting adjourned. Stay safe out there, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joel. What did you land on?
Some